Getting our chance to get up on YouTube here for all the YouTube peoples. All right. Thank you for the first timers coming. Welcome everyone. This is our circle call for May of 2020 here. We're coming up on June and we meet every last Sunday of the month. Can't believe it's already coming into June, can you? I really can't. I think the past 6 months for everyone really has been incredibly, profoundly moving. A lot of changes going on. We're watching a grand crumbling of so much. We have two major shifts going on at the same time. A massive awakening, the ascension of consciousness into a higher state, and a massive collapse at the same time. And that collapse is going to draw you. It's going to draw you in. It's going to draw you in, and it's going to bring out so much for you right now. It's going to bring out so much. So, for example, we have a lot of protests going on around the United States right now. We have the fresh pain of the latest acts of racism that have gone on in our country, revealing once more that these things are not gone. And it really shows us how important lineage clearing and healing really is. How important that really is. Because we carry the racism of our ancestors. We carry the pain of being oppressed. We carry those things. And that is so deep. That's a lot of baggage. It's a lot of baggage, many thousands of years of xenophobia. Xenophobia is the fear of the other, the fear of something different than you. And it's deep, it's a program, and it creates division. And remember what that old adage says, divide and conquer, right? So how do we heal that? How do we make sure division doesn't conquer us? It's very important to consider that mystically. To stop the division conquering us, we need to ask ourselves every day, who is the most vulnerable around me and how can I serve them? That might right now be your neighbors who have a different ethnicity. That might be the children around you, the disabled, the impoverished, the elderly. We have a long list of what is vulnerability, who is vulnerable around us. Sometimes the vulnerable person looks like us. Sometimes they don't. And privilege is real. Privilege is real. And that means we need to use privilege. If you've got privilege, it's up to you to notice it, be aware of it, educate yourself on this, and then use it. Use it to serve the vulnerable, be in service. Service heals all divide. Service heals all divide. So I'm vehemently against any kind of violence. We don't need violence to create change. Look at Korea, look at India, look at their histories and their protests. Look at the country of Georgia and their revolution. Go look at some history on those three places, and you'll see that violent protests are not necessary. Protests are fine. Peaceful protests, great. Mass amounts of people standing for freedom, for justice, proper justice. All of those things have grand and amazing effects. And what is this? This draws us right in, doesn't it? The for and against. For and against. So let's look at this game board, because I have something special I want to share with you that helps you end your playing on the game board all the time, right? When you're off the game board, and we'll get drawn back into the game board easily. When you're off the game board, there is no more for and against. There is only seeing the choices each moment that each person, and of course yourself, has to make. Each moment is precious. And that's where we create our future from. So we have the ascension and we have the collapse happening at the same time. We have a lot of people trying to rebuild. We have a lot of people feeling really stuck. We have a lot of shifting going on. The movement is. And what do we find when we're in the midst of two massive waves going in two directions? We find chaos. We find our pain. We find our lack of control. You are a creator being. We're creating this together. We created this experiment together. Do you really have lack of control? Let's talk about the game board. The game board is known through emotion. The game board is known through the triggers and reactions we have. So when you're watching the news, you're consuming information, a facet of it only, a small facet of it. And you'll find yourself to be triggered, as any normal person would, right? And we have these emotions, they come up. Maybe there's several. There's anger, there's frustration, there's fear. They move through, they hit us. Bam. They hit you. And we cry and we get angry. And maybe we get terrified. We get afraid and we shut down. We shove this energy deep into our bodies and we try to go about our day. But what happens? The hamster wheel of the mind catches those frequencies, the anger, the fear, and it runs it. And that image of what triggered you doesn't go away. It replays it over and over again, doesn't it? Because in fact, you've ended up creating another baggage of trauma. Without realizing it, you built up another trash bag of trauma in your body. Because the reaction and the trigger that is not dealt with will magnify, it will manifest, and it will hang out in your body, in your DNA, in your mind, creating lenses that we look through of our pain, lenses of our judgment, lenses of our fear. That's what it looks like when you're functioning on the game board. How do you get off the game board? You notice first the reactions, the triggers that are showing up. Notice them. Be aware. That's that awareness. That's the awareness as the ascension. Being aware in yourself, not aware of other people's feelings, not aware of other people's actions, yours, in response to your environment and all information coming into your sphere. You notice it. I feel angry right now. Or maybe you don't have a name for the emotion. That's okay. It's a sensation in the body, isn't it? So you find it. My fear, it rises up. It strangles me. It shuts me down. I can't talk. I want to cry. The jaw gets tight. The throat feels tight. You want to cry. The anger, the energy, the fear, it comes up. It wants to be seen. It wants to be known. See it, know it. Look it in the face. Where is it in your body? Pull up the last fear you had with me. Immediately, it always likes to go into my throat, right? We go into it. Ah, yes, hello, fear. I know you. You've taught me so much. There's the fear. Our old friend fear. Fear is a frequency. Fear is known in the body as a sensation, and the body works with frequency. Everything is frequency. The sadness, the anger, the fear. And we welcome it there. I welcome this fear in my throat fully. I welcome you, fear. You are welcome here. You have a place in this universe, fear. All things do. Just like me. Just like me, you, dear fear, you, dear anger, you are welcome here in this universe. I know you. When you know it, when you allow it, you are choosing not to stand in it, not to create more consciousness under pressure that turns into trauma in the body. You are choosing to go into that book, the book of fear. It's the library of frequencies that we get to play with every day. This is the end of the game board. I want you to imagine a big round room. A big round room, very large. And around the edges are showering waves of frequency. Maybe they look like beautiful cloths, shimmering pieces of cloth coming down, or a shower of energy. Each one has a color, each one has a frequency, and each one has an emotion in our body. It happens that these bodies perceive frequency as emotion. And that's wonderfully handy because it serves our knowledge and our evolution in the long run. Exists is to perceive all of these things. Now, this big library of frequencies, all of these have an order. There's an order to them. Remember, it's round. So I want you to imagine then the wheel. In ancient times, we called it the wheel of samsara, right? This is actually what it looks like. It's like a room, a library of frequencies. On one end are peak separation experiences. That fear, that anger, the violence, that's a peak separation experience. On the other end is peak oneness experiences and everything in between, right? Peak oneness experiences, joy, feeling connected, feeling supported by the universe. Those are peak oneness experiences. On the other end, the peak separation in the soul, the smart, super intelligent, incredibly quantum soul journeys through this cycle, this library, many, many times, sometimes many times in a lifetime. Sometimes we end up stuck on one end or another. We all know that we have had friends who really suffer a lot, and they seem stuck on the peak separation end of the wheel, of the cycle, of the library. And some friends of ours seem like they never have anything bad happen to them, and they're always happy. And they seem like they're stuck on the oneness end. And what value do we get when we actually know we can walk through this through our own volition, through our own choice, our own will? We can choose, whoa, I'm in anger frequency right now. Welcome, anger. There you are, my friend anger, who exists in the universe just like me and has a place. Hi there, I've learned so much from you. Welcome. What happens when you do that? The anger doesn't have power over you anymore. The fear doesn't have power over you anymore. This is not necessarily a super easy way to function in life. I'm not claiming that's easy, but begin now to train your body to welcome what is available. We want to end the game board for the entire species. This would be great, but it's got to start with the willful choices of an individual each time. The willful choices of the individual. It's you. It's you and your choices that will end the game. It's you and your choice to remain in the anger and get to know it. I want to be angry right now. I need to be angry right now. Okay, I'm standing in this frequency of anger and I welcome you. I welcome all the anger. I welcome the anger that I've had in my life. I welcome it from my lineage. I welcome it from my soul. All the possibilities of anger are allowed, and I feel angry. And then, when you're finished getting to know anger, you can bow to it and say, thank you, anger. I appreciate what you've taught me. And when you're done, you step out of the frequency through gratitude. Through gratitude. We don't have to check out the book of anger and carry it around with us our whole life, reading it slowly. We don't have to do that. We can leave it right where it is and get to know it by welcoming it as its whole, as the whole thing, all possibilities of anger in the universe. You see, the soul likes to try to take different pieces in the lifetime and examine sections of that book called anger. But we rarely get the conscious chance to say, you know what? I don't really need to read small parts of this book anymore. I really just want to know it fully, and it's not going to be with my mind. You can't know it with your mind. You're going to know it through the entire embodiment. So then anger doesn't seem unfamiliar anymore when it shows up in weird places, at weird times. It doesn't end up being unfamiliar. It becomes an energy that wafts through. Doesn't mean you don't feel anger. It means that you notice it. Oh, hello. There you are. I see you. I feel you. Welcome here. You are welcome here. This is universal compassion. And it does some amazing things for us. We finally understand that unconditional love has no opposite. Unconditional love is how you read the library. You love, you end up learning to love anger for its existence, for its generative power. You learn to love fear. We can love fear and say, fear, you are welcome here. You have a place in this universe. What is the only thing? What is the only condition for love? There's only one condition: existence. Existence is the only condition for love. Anger exists. Fear exists. We're not trying to get rid of these things, folks. We need to know them so they don't have power over us anymore. And we go into the shadow, we welcome a layer of it, we fully welcome it, and it no longer is under pressure anymore, which that's all it ever was. That pressure creates that sensation of separation. It no longer is under pressure, it blooms, it allows itself to be revealed in that it is made of light, and it always was. This also does a second thing for us. We are no longer out of control. There is no lack of control anymore. We become conscious that we keep choosing each moment to surround ourselves in people, places, things, information, light and dark. And furthermore, just as a cherry on top, this gives you back all of your power. All your power that's been leaking out to the media or leaking out to bad situations, leaking out to the pain and the agony that is on this earth. It ends that. You regain your power and you become even more powerful without taking power away from anyone. It's a win-win. It's a win-win to fully notice it and welcome it and be it. Then you get to know that part of the library so fully and so wonderfully that every wafting emotion, whether separation level emotion or oneness level or something in between or even neutrality, it shows up every second, every possibility is available, and then you can be happy for no reason. You don't need a reason to be happy. You can be happy even when you're angry. You can be happy when you're sad, because all of that ever was a frequency. Now you know how to make sure your power doesn't get taken away from you. No one can hurt or mar or mess up your life, your paradise. No one. No action, no thing, no problem has that much power over you. You are the creator being of this life that you're living. What would happen if everyone functioned in this way? That's what we're shooting for. It's easy enough to talk about. Doesn't matter what religion you are. Doesn't matter if you believe in past lives or not. It does not matter what your political stance is. This is universal language here. We could tell it to a room of rabbis and Catholic priests and a room of doctors and naturopaths and a room full of really poor veterans who are suffering in a room full of single moms, and everyone's going to get it. It doesn't matter who you talk about this to. It does make sense. The next step for you as you play with this is to share it. The more we share this, the more we embody it, which is why I'm sharing it freely instead of, say, teaching a class about it. Because this particular information should be free. Wouldn't it be nice if we could begin to live our lives not on a game board anymore, not being divided, but recognizing our creator status, recognizing the creator in each other? That's what the concept of namaste means. Noticing that, yes, oh, here we are, you create and I create, and we're creating this together. We've created this world together. We've created its divisions. We've created its unity. We've created the collapse and the ascension. We're part of the grand experiment, and your position in it is vital. Your position in this experiment is vital. Without you doing this inner self-inquiry as an act of service for the world, the experiment will fail. And that's totally possible. And that's also okay. There's a million timelines where all this totally fails. And there's a million timelines where it doesn't. And they're all perfect. Stop trying to hop timelines. They're all perfect. You don't need to hop timelines to create change. You need to work on you, being willing to know the library that is available to you so that none of the peak separation experiences rule your life. So that none of those peak separation experiences have control over you, but instead become your lifelong friend that has taught you so much. It's an incredible way to love life, to notice the pain and even welcome it, to get to know it so it doesn't have power over anymore and doesn't keep you trapped in your consciousness under pressure in the hamster wheel. That's what we're wanting right now. Deeply, deeply, we desire this. We desire it so much. We search and search and search outside of ourselves to find this information. We search. For so long we've searched. And yet it was there inside of you the whole time. Everything I'm saying is going to feel correct probably inside of you. I'm just making a guess on that one. But it's about change, isn't it? A lot of people don't know this, but in my years in academia, I spent 10 years in higher ed, and I spent that whole time being obsessed with change, actually. And I got into anthropological theoretical work where I was building theoretical models that would also become methodologies and trying to understand how to implement change. I wanted to see the world change for the better. I desperately wanted it so much that I obsessed about it constantly. My roommate thought I was nuts because I'd write stuff all over my sliding glass door with purple erasable markers, and it looked like something out of The Beautiful Mind or something, probably. So I obsessed with this deep desire for change. Why? Because I wanted to change. because I was miserable. I was suffering so much. I just wanted to die. We've all been there. I wanted change. And I was able to create a theoretical model, which also turned into a method. And then when you'd use the method, it would keep proving the model. And I helped people understand change better. And I called it cultural change theory. And it's been in a box for a decade. I've taught about it a little bit. I'm going to be writing a book about it so that we can use it to our advantage. But that aside, what I'm saying today is more important than any model or any method. This is the end of the game board. How do I know that's true? Because I would ask myself that question, actually. How do I know that's true? How does she know that's true? How does she know that's the end of the game board? About 6 months in brief, just from a personal level. And I like to take, as you know, I'd like to take it from personal to universal. So bear with me because I'm going to be talking about the personal and you're probably going to say, wow, that sounds like me. Yeah, probably. So past 6 to 9 months or so has been more difficult, more painful than any time in my life combined, probably. And I've had some real rock bottoms in my life where I even tried to commit suicide. And this wasn't quite at that point, but it was, I thought I might die for sure. And so it wasn't suicidal necessarily, but I definitely have felt these moments where I thought, it's going to be the end of me. This is going to be the end. And having to find my way through that. So in September last year, I was abducted for the 3rd time. I've talked about it in the September call when we did, I think it was September or October call, our circle call. So you can find that actually in the playlist on YouTube. That's the circle community calls. Go look back at September and October last year because I talk about the abduction experience and what happened and how I made sure it didn't become a trauma because it really certainly ought to have been incredibly traumatic and it didn't end up being that way. So then in December, of course, the solstice comes through, Mother Divine takes her position on Earth, and the whole thing blows up. All the stuff that has to crumble begins crumbling really, really fast. Starting last year, around the same time, fall time, is when the financial system collapsed. A lot of people don't realize the financial system collapsed last fall. It was overshadowed by the pandemic stuff because of a lot of reasons, but that collapse began at that point. So then January comes around and I'm full blown in my worthlessness. It's easier for me to address arrogance than it is for me to address worthlessness. And so I was being asked to do that, go into my worthlessness. I've gained a lot of weight over the past couple of years, so I've really been extra hard on myself because of surgeries that made my hormones wonky, blah, blah, blah. Then a couple big, massive rock bottoms, just totally hit rock bottom, physically, mentally, emotionally, thought I was probably going to die. This turned into a health crisis, basically. And a lot of us have been facing that too. So again, none of this is unfamiliar territory to you. Then, as some of you know, I do a lot of mystical work looking at the deepest of the dark, at the bottom of the rabbit hole. I keep it fairly private because I can't publicly talk about much of what I see and know. And that's okay. Eventually we'll get there. when we can at least perhaps be able to come in person and talk about these things. But I was doing work with that, very, very deep, powerful stuff, really scary stuff, and continues on through trying to get my health back in order and not doing a very good job of it because it's my linchpin point. My weakest point has been my health. And then over the continued months, finding these peak, had to ask for help. I tend to think that I'm going to be a badass and do it all myself. And so in February, I asked for help. And this is where I'm getting into the point of how do I know that this is what I'm talking about is the end of the game board. In February, I asked for help because my health had really, I was having adrenal collapse and a nervous breakdown, basically, and I had more than one happen over that period of time. And I have a teacher named Rama, and he comes through visions. He's my teacher's teacher. I never met him in person. And I haven't talked about him publicly either, so this is a little new. You can find his work at ramatalks.com. All of his work is free now, so I encourage you, go listen to him. He's brilliant, and you'll see how my teacher, Lucia Renee, how she came to where she's at and why I've ended up working in this world with the kind of work they do. Lucia wrote the book, Unplugging the Patriarchy. Then you'll get to know a lot more about how this world works. It's very intense and beautiful book. And if you want more empowerment support, look at her work as well, luciarenee.com. So anyhow, I ask and Rama shows up, which is rare for me. I see visions sometimes and I've learned some incredible things. He's a master engineer of consciousness. And the things that he's shown me have continued to unfold and be very, very real and true, especially the healing of the masculine. The healing of the masculine is on the table at the moment, and I'm going to get to that. So he comes in and he takes me to this room that I just described to you. He took me there. He was the one who showed it to me, and he presented it to me as the library of frequencies of the universe, which makes sense to me because I'm very... From there, I was trying to figure out where I was. Where is this room? And making sense of it, which is how I discovered it was organized in peak separation and peak oneness experiences. Well, eventually I did call my teacher, Lucia, and tell her what I was seeing. And she says, oh, I know exactly where you're at. And for those of us who kind of talk about esoteric dimensions being the best word we have to describe them, Lucia said, that's the 11th dimension, where you finally realize how everything works and you can step off the game board. But the way that it was discovered for me was so simple that I thought, my goodness, it's all available. We don't really need to have somehow embodied all the other 10 dimensions to get to it. In fact, I can describe this pretty simply to people. So before I chose to talk about this today, I did start talking about it with people in sessions, in one-on-one sessions and groups, and it was profound. It was profound what happened to people when they were able to use this metaphorical place to help them process, to help them end the power that the peak separation experiences have over us. And so after many, many chances to share this and seeing how profound it was for people, that's when I know everybody needs to hear this. So when Mother Divine stepped onto the stage, she made available much of these kinds of things to us that weren't so easily available before, which is why the timing. It couldn't have been done last year. It couldn't be available last year. It has to be available now. So all the divine timing certainly comes into play. Now, as this Mother Divine energy is very powerful, it's very powerful. It's got a lot of that pure unconditional love power to it. And it's been embodied by the earth. And that's been slowly moving up through the body, like a warm bath being filled up, right? Slowly, slowly. So around the springtime, when I was hitting rock bottom, that's when the energy came and was hitting the feminine power center, the root, where all of the feminine tends to hold all of our heaviest junk there. No wonder I had a hysterectomy at such a young age. I was holding all my worthlessness and all my pain and all my self-hatred in my womb, in that part of my body. And women, all of us who tend to have these bellies, there's a reason. Your embodiment is a lot more formless than the masculine. You're holding on to pain, and you hold on to everybody else's pain. Sound familiar? When we hold on to it, it'll blow up the body. It blows up the body and it causes this pooch, as we call it in America, to build up. We have difficulty with our health. We end up with great tragic amounts of pain and agony deep in our root. And then we're cut off from that whole gut mind and all of our organs. And even worse, us ladies will cut ourselves off from the heart too. And then we're just function from the head up. Might as well just be a head, right? And the men, it's hit you now. It's hit your heart space. Up, it's started to come up, and now it's here. This energy, and it's continuing to move up. What's going to happen to people's voices? Well, it's coming up. That's what we're seeing. People's voices. The I can't breathe. I want to breathe. There's a reason why that's coming up. The cop standing on a black man's neck. There's a reason why this has come up to here. It's coming up right now. It's universal reason. The crushing of the voice. The people saying, no, I want to breathe. I want to speak. I need to be heard. The trauma of not being heard for millennia. And then what's it going to do when it starts coming up here? I have no idea. Let's find out, because it's coming. Whether we like it or not, it's coming. And we can learn to be attentive to it and to love it and to learn from it, right? So it hit the men, it hits the men's hearts, and bam, you have all these different things going on with the masculine. We get the revealing of dark masculine and light masculine. We get the masculine in denial. We get the masculine who's fully awake, and everything in between. In my life, personally, I've been noticing it hit the men really fast. And I thought before it all came to hit the men's hearts, which is your power center, guys, I thought, boy, when it hits the masculine heart power center, physical stuff is going to start happening. Things are going to break. It hit my husband's heart. And no kidding, the same day his heart really bust open, not joking, a power pole snapped and a tree snapped and fell right in our backyard outside my kitchen window the same day. Men, you are manifestors. Man, manifester, you are manifestors. Everything that happens inside of you happens outside of you. The heartbreak of the masculine has turned into riots in the United States. The heartbreak of the oppressed has finally unleashed itself into the physical. I also know, that this is hitting all of the men, not just my husband, because all the men I know, their hearts are burst open. All their trauma, all their stuff, every linchpin, every difficulty is being magnified and revealed to them so intensely, they cannot deny it anymore. And they're reaching out for help. My brother reached out for help. I know that is a measurable example because he's never asked me for help before. And the men, they're asking for help and they need us. They need us. The women, they need the awake men. They need the men who are on top of this stuff. They need the women. They need us because they're going to help maintain the other door. There's going to be a massive doorway coming for us in the future that when it needs to open simultaneously. It can't just be one side of it open. No, it's got to be all of humankind. And so I see you guys. I hear you, ladies. The past 6 months have hurt. It hurts. It's been hurting to be human for so long. And it's built up to this point where we're saying, I don't know if I want to be here anymore. It hurts so bad to be human. Ah, there you are, Hurt. Welcome. You're my friend. I've learned so much from you. I love you. You're welcome here in this universe, Hurt. It's been so difficult to be human, and don't buy into the human hatred. Don't buy into the human hate program. Don't lose hope in humanity. This is not how we're going to live forever. It's not how we're going to live. Because if you and I have anything to do about it, we're going to be happy for no reason. We're going to keep being happy. Even when it hurts, we're going to still be happy. I am so happy right now. I have never been happier. And I hurt still. And I'm still happy. I physically hurt. I emotionally hurt. I mentally hurt. But I'm so happy because I know what the game board is. I know I can let this pain move through and bow to it and welcome it because it belongs. It belongs in the universe, just like me. I see you. I hear you. The ladies who have been trying to feel, been trying to get their root back, trying to get their worth back, trying to be heard. I see you guys. The men, your hearts burst wide open, finally saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep wearing this armor anymore. This is the dissolving. That's the good part of it. Toss your armor in. Toss your armor into the wave of dissolving. Give your trauma to Mother Divine. She's got you. Every time we fall, she catches us. She's there. She's never left your back. Give it away. Give it away by loving it. By saying, you're welcome here, I love you, and then you hand it off. Not to a person. We don't hand it off through our bad moods, right? Though bad moods happen, gotta love those too. You give it away by loving it, and when you love it, you give it back to source. You give it back to the heart of source. Because you were source all along. And my last big statement, I want to get to some questions, and we're going to build a pillar of light for freedom and justice out in the Atlantic. I asked Source, where are we going to build this next pillar of light? And I saw the Atlantic, and I said, why the Atlantic? Right smack in the middle of the Atlantic. And I heard because of the slave trade. That was where the slave trade really took off, was in the Atlantic. And by golly, the ocean remembers that stuff. The water remembers the screams and agony of the slaves and indentured servants. The water remembers. And let's build that pillar. At the end of our call today, we're going to build that big pillar of light for justice and freedom. For freedom from the game board, and for justice, true justice for all. That's what we'll do towards the end. My last statement. There's a lot of sides, this talk of sides, political sides, especially, right? That's an illusion. There are no sides. When you take two people, they are so utterly, totally different from each other in a universal sense, in a physical sense, and in an esoteric sense. These two souls are totally different. They have a different vantage point. They have different bodies who have had their own special lineages. And you take these two souls and you try to compare their vantage point. No two people get along on 100% of things. Why? Because they have two different sides? No, because they're a facet in a big, huge, amazing story called humanity. They're a facet. There are no sides. There are facets. You can't take a big group of people and another big group of people and say, well, they're just on a different side. That's not true. Real. Every one of those individuals has a facet. Go look at the work of Jane Addams. And I'm pretty sure Jane Addams, the last name had 2 Ds, I'm pretty sure. Jane Addams was a sociologist, turn of the century, Chicago. And she talks about what's called the split mind technique. The split mind technique says any situation, issue, person, place, or thing, you can set it in front of you, you can set it in a room, and every person who looks at it is going to have a very different viewpoint or vantage point on that same thing. If you really want to know a thing, you need to know as many vantage points as you can, which is where the concept of ethnography came from, which is one of the tools we use in anthropology. We want the opinion and perspective of as many people as possible might be. And so she learned that, she taught that, she figured out that as many facets of vantage points as possible gives you a bigger, more complete picture of a thing, much bigger than your own. And then you get to include yours too. And so the split mind says, what are the other objective experiences outside of me from this, all these different vantage points about this thing we're looking at? And what is mine? So you accept the subjective as part of the facets, and then objectively you're learning about all the other facets without judgment, without preference. And when you have as many as possible, you're going to have a better, more clear picture of reality. Where do we get any of this at all? You go to school and you're going to be taught a side of the story. You're going to be taught somebody's facet, someone, usually the winner, right? When you go to university, it's no different. It's no different. You get taught a facet, one facet of reality. Then you go out in the world and none of us are properly taught how to really objectively listen to someone without judging them, right? To mirror back to them what they're saying so they're truly heard, to remove the but and or I out of responses. Yeah, but I think, and that might be true, but, or I have whatever. We're not taught how to communicate properly. And so then we go along in the world and then we're shown things on television and mass media, which is another simple facet. And then they tell us that it's a side. Well, we're going to give you one side of the story and the other side of the story here, and they're going to fight it out. That's madness. That's not realistic at all. And it has nothing to do with reality. Reality includes all facets. You can't make one more important than the other, and yours is just as important. All facets are important. Anyone trying to stifle one facet over another, we have a name for that. It's called censorship and tyranny. So it's really important for us to begin to end this concept of sides and to learn how to communicate properly, to truly listen to each other so we can feel that we are truly heard. And so can other people, even when we don't agree, because we have a different vantage point on our lives. The valuing of all facets is vital for freedom. So let's keep that in mind when we build our pillar of light in a little while. Good, so I covered everything I wanted to cover. And I'm ready to talk to you. How are you doing? I'm going to answer questions on my Zoom, and I'm going to look at YouTube too to try to get as many as I can. And I'm sorry I won't be able to do them all. Usually there's a lot. So I'm going to just try to cover as many as that shows up. So Caroline mentions quarantine. It's been shown to me a few times the beauty of the masculine, even as it manifested in the patriarchy. I never saw this before, that there was a beauty in the patriarchy. Like true warrior archetype and other aspects, I have felt I need to witness this within myself as we step out of the patriarchy. I can so relate to the feeling, the pain, and yet feeling so happy and moved by all the beauty of it. This happened to me last night. The frequency of this is so high, I couldn't sleep for hours. I'm weeping with you now. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And so Nicole wants to know, what about the 11th dimension thing, getting off the game board? That's right, Nicole. I did explain it simply by showing you that it's that simple to welcome each frequency that shows up, to know it, to bow to it, to recognize it as an important part of this universe. That's the end of the game board. It's very profound, but that's the end of it. That's how you get out of the game board. You have control over where you stand in that library every moment, and all of you are in it. You don't have to go find it. You're in it. You're already there. It's that simple. The game board is the library of frequencies, learning about them in each lifetime that we have. And when we do it unconsciously, we get stuck in parts of that library. Now we do it consciously. That's the end of the game board. That's stepping off. By doing it consciously, noticing it, hey, there you are, anger. There you are, frustration or confusion. Hi, I welcome you. I know you. I love you. You are welcome. And by doing that, you end the game. You end the game, and now you can create from there. All right, what do I want to be in right now? I need to be in anger right now. Okay. I need to be in protest right now. Great. Get to know protest. And when you're done, take a fresher, bow to protest, thank protest for what you've learned, and move forward. That's the end of the game board. No, you got it. Thank you very much for reiterating it, Nicole, so I can make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Okay, good. So I'm kind of scanning up and seeing if there's any other questions showing up. Maina says, these last weeks I've been doing that, integrating the emotions like rage that I feel, and it really works. I'm amazed how it works. And then they dissolve and disappear instead of me sending them to the first person that comes to me, right? Yeah, exactly. It's awesome. Now I feel I have got some control over them. Beautiful, Mina. See, I'm not surprised at all to hear that, because when this stuff gets put out into the collective, all these people, they figure it out. That's why us talking about it out loud today is so important, because then stuff really can be figured out for the collective. It's available then to the real internet, right? The real internet of the heart. And then all the people, they can start to play with it because it's available, even if they've never heard us talk today at all. Very cool. And I want to say, yes, the masculine is so precious and beautiful, Caroline, and how they are so over it. They're over the patriarchy too. The men are, every man I talk to says, I don't want this anymore. And it's over. The patriarchy's over. Now we're working on ascending and collapsing to rebuild into something totally different that we've never experienced as a species, which is tough. So Alicia asks, is it not difficult to identify too much by welcoming and getting drowned in it? Gotcha. So I think you're asking, Alicia, how to make sure you don't get drowned in stuff. You got to find it in your body and start there. So find the sensation in the body. You might not even need to name the emotion. Find the sensation in the body. So when I pull up worthlessness now, it's shifted a lot. It used to be down in my root where I'd store it, right? But now it's kind of up here. And so I just notice the sensation there. That's the emotional body tuning into the frequency of it. Nothing can drown you. If you're afraid of being drowned, to that fear and say, all right, fear of drowning in emotions, there you are. I welcome you. How does it feel to be drowned in my emotions? All right, I feel horrible. It feels terrible. I welcome you. You belong here in this universe. And what happens? It has no more power over you then, Alicia. Keep doing that, and you'll see what I mean. Nothing can drown you. Nothing can hurt you. Even if you die, nothing can hurt your consciousness. Death is not real. Death is recycling. It doesn't exist. True annihilation does not exist in this universe. You're going to be okay. Good. Okay. Karen asks, when we welcome the frequencies, don't we want them to dissolve into our heart and then we can be free from those emotions instead of anger and fear reappearing over and over? I agree with that, actually. I think that if we're really honest to ourselves, especially about enlightenment, the enlightened people, which I've had the privilege of being around, also talk to this. The emotions don't end. There's always going to be anger in this universe. There's always going to be rage. There's always going to be pain. It belongs here. That's the difference in the attitude, is that my pain does come through. It still will exist no matter how far along on this path I get. It still exists, but it comes through. And then now I have more full understanding of it. I have more consciousness of it so that it doesn't turn into trauma. You see, having emotions isn't the problem. It's that they build up as trauma. So I'll still get angry, even in enlightenment you. And Karen, we're all going to reach enlightenment if anybody has anything on this call to say about it, right? And even in enlightenment, we're still going to find pain and anger, and we're going to welcome it. It's going to waft through like a bad smell, isn't it? And then it doesn't hit trauma and then create more trauma, more consciousness under pressure, right? That's what the idea is. It's not to have no emotions at all. That's not what happens in enlightenment at all. It's that we then don't hold on to it. It doesn't turn into trauma anymore. It moves through, it wafts through. So kind of keep that in mind as you're playing with this, because it doesn't mean that you won't get triggered. It doesn't mean you're not going to have reactions. It means that you'll know exactly what that really is. That's the end of the game board, right? You'll know exactly what it really is when it's happening. And that's the cool part. So experiment with me, Karen, because let's try it. Let's see what happens. I do find that I get less triggered over the years, but I still have reactions, and so do all of the enlightened people I know. They still talk about it as continuing to happen because your emotional body isn't going anywhere. You're not getting rid of your emotional body. So that'll be kind of interesting to play with. Let me know how that works for you, Karen. And so, Alicia, yes, kind of. Let's be clear. So Alicia is asking, are you taking a distance from the emotion? Are you distancing yourself? Sort of. You're objectively being aware of it, even while it's occurring. And so we might call that objectivity more than distance, because it's still in us, right? So the anger might be there, the hurt, the sadness is there, but now we're aware of it in a new way. We're aware of it in an objective way. A subjective way would be for myself right now because I'm hurting. I want to wallow in this. This sucks and I can't get rid of it. And it's the end. And, the downward spiral is the subjective. So when we subjectively experience trauma and emotion and pain and peak separation experiences, then we spin into it. When we objectively examine it, then you're saying, hey, that's just part of the library. This belongs here. Of course I feel angry. I should. It's real. And there it is. It exists. So we're letting the frequency of anger be what it is, a frequency that's full of information. And that's the objectification of it, being objective about it. So Alicia, play around with those two particular definitions, subjective and objective. objective and look at Jay's sense of being objective versus being distanced from it. Because you don't want to distance from it, you want to know it. You want to know that fear and anger so well that it becomes your familiar friend that shows up every once in a while to put a fire under you to get you going, right? And then it has no power over you. You don't feel overwhelmed, crushed, or drowned by it anymore. I hope that makes more sense. Mark says, I've had this question for a long time. It seems that the world over, light-skinned people are more highly valued than dark-skinned people. Even in India, which I visited, even in Africa and Asia. With your deep knowledge of anthropology and human history, even going back to prehistory, I'd love to hear your insight into this. It's shocking. It's stupid. It's ignorance to value anyone on what's called phenotype. We're getting all these anthropology words out here. We've got ethnography, subjective and objective. Now we have phenotype. Phenotype is what is skin deep, right? What is skin deep? All of that was systematically put in place through many eons, especially the patriarchy, to create further division. And that further, we could say that men were more valued and are more valued across the world in every country. Yeah, that's true. Look at the infanticide of females across the entire planet. Pretty shocking in every country. So we could also say that about gender, but especially skin tone for sure. And why? Well, because in the consistent acts of division being created and perpetrated by those who want to maintain power over, the sign of beauty then could be determined and presented to the people. And then they'd say, look, this person is the most beautiful person there is. Remember something I read a long time ago was like, Angelina Jolie is the most beautiful woman in the world, right? That's crazy. It's crazy. It's real. It's not real. That's continued division, right? And especially around beauty and around health and around goodness and intelligence and value. And people will have that in the back of their mind. I don't know how many gorgeous, fabulous, intelligent African-American friends of mine have said, all I really want is to be able to buy makeup that matches my skin tone. All I really want is to have examples of beauty that look like me. And that is the heart of it, isn't it? We need models for all. And our models ought to come from our local communities, not top down. So how are we going to fix the problem? Let's show our children, because the children are really key in this always. If we rebuild our entire planet around the children, everything's going to be fine. Terrorism will end. Everything will end if everything, political systems, economic systems, are built around and for children. And so how do we fix the problem? We give our children a chance to have examples of beauty, value, intelligence that are local, that are people they can actually talk to. It ought to be the end of celebrity. It ought to be the beginning of merit. Here's this person who's in our community who has so much value in our community because they've been so selflessly giving of themselves. And look how beautiful they are. and rising each person up. It doesn't mean that they're going to look like a supermodel. That all should end too. It ought to, because it's not real. Even the supermodels will tell you it's not real. So what is real? The local people that the kids can actually interact with and not feel like they're a million miles away on some pedestal, wishing somehow that they could be like that person. That's madness. It's madness. And that's the end. It's the end of the corruption of you. So, for example, my daughters, I never let them look at that kind of stuff. I never let them get into celebrity. Instead, we celebrate the people around them. Their model right now is their nanny. She's beautiful, she's fit, she exercises like properly, she's smart, she's growing into herself, she's changed a lot, she teaches them. She's their model. She's the most beautiful person in their world. And that's what it should be. So let's play with that. Let's work on it. First thing we can do is unplug our kids from that whole paradigm of national and global culture that's being top down presented to us. And that's a good place to begin. The healing of many eons, of valuing the lighter skin or any specific gender over anybody else, or even ability. Some of the most beautiful people I've truly met who are shining lights in this world can't even feed themselves, my friends. Those are the people that stand out in my memory as the most beautiful people. And so we can lift them up. That's what true merit and beauty are. We got to start now. We got to convince ourselves first of all of this and work on it for ourselves. And then we start playing around by teaching the other people around us and just sharing with whoever's in front of you. That's how we change the world. It's going to be locally. It's going to be from your inner self and your household from there. Good. And so Britt has such a profoundly beautiful question. How are the children dealing with all of this, and how can we support them? That's a question we should ask every day. We should base our entire rebuilding of our planet off of that question, Britt. My pulse is that the kids are changing just as fast as we are. My kids certainly are. They are changing just as fast, and they're resilient, and they're smart, and they're going to be okay, especially if we keep believing in ourselves that we're all going to be okay. Then the kids will believe that too. And a lot of children suffer deeply. They suffer because they don't have access to information and light. They only have certain facets available to them. And that leads to Tony's question. If the university is only one facet, where do we send our kids for education? Homeschool. And listen, I'm not anti-university at all. And I did all the different schools. I did public school for myself. I was in public school, I was in private school, I was homeschooled in a lot of different ways. I had on one end hardcore curriculum, on the other end we might as well call it unschooling. And for me, the asking children, what do you love? Asking young adults, what do you love? And then building from there what their education can be. It helps to meet their needs. It helps to meet their needs in ways that are going to work for them and not a whole classroom of kids, but for them personally. Stop asking kids things like, what do you want to be when you grow up? That's crazy. Don't take away their childhood in one fell swoop. Give them a chance to be in the moment. So if we keep asking ourselves, what do I love right now? A lot of people can't even answer that. Do you know how many people I talk to who say, I don't even know what I like or love because they've been told what to love? So we start there. What do you love? Ask the kids every day, what do you love today? They're going to blow your mind. um, and I went to university, even though some of what I was being taught wasn't true. I still went because I had then the structure and the discipline that I needed. And I got that structure and discipline from university. I got different kinds of modalities and different kinds of tools to use, but that wasn't the end of it. I've learned more since I got out of college years and years ago than I have while I was in there, and in an academic sense as well. But we do, need these things. It's just that we need to be realistic about what they are. They're just facets. They're a facet. Someone's teaching you a facet, not the whole thing. And your facet's just as important as theirs, and all of your fellow students' facets are too. That's why I think anthropology should be something we could all learn, and it would help us to care about other people's facets a little better. That's why I say start with again in our re-education of ourselves. And we go from there. And then the universities, Tony, will look different, won't they? In the future, they're going to look different. They're going to appreciate more facets. They're going to teach you objective and subjective thinking before anything else, and then go from there. So I don't think that the collapse means the end of everything we know. I think it's going to be, we're going to keep a lot of things. We're just going to have to change the inner workings of them. And that's one of the ways we can do it, is by asking ourselves, what do I love? And asking the people around us, what do you love today? Not tomorrow, today. And then you build from there. Good questions. All right, so scanning up here, Daki asks, you speak as of vantage points. I recognize as the primary principle in collaboration training. And that principle is involve all relevant stakeholders. Just wanted to mention that as an additional angle. Collaboration addresses our current and often unconscious use of hierarchy in our thinking and leadership, both personally and collectively. And please do tell the folks about your talk with Danielle Hoffman. Yes, that's right. And that's a replay today. So if you're on my email list, go to Divine to Divine with Danielle Rama Hoffman. And there's an interview that some people are saying is one of the best ones they've heard. So, which is great. I loved it. It was really beautiful, deep interview. And that replay is going on today for 24 hours. Go sign up on her site and get access to that if you get a chance. Thanks for the reminder. And Daki, I agree, collaboration training, isn't that amazing that we're going to be going into that as our paradigm of empowerment is based in collaboration. The end of the power over paradigm, the entrance of empowerment, and one of those foundational parts of that is collaboration and really caring about all facets that are involved in whatever person, place, thing, or issue is up to examine. And so really great comment here. Sorry, I can't read your name properly. Beauty has lost all meaning, in my opinion. It just means cosmetics. Amen. Imagine seeing Angelina Jolie without any makeup. Would she still be that beautiful? And that's the key point, isn't it? Is what is this concept of beauty anyway? Let's redefine that for ourselves. So homework number 1, everybody, redefine what is value, what is valuable, and what is beautiful for yourself first. Redefine that. And we're going to play with that. Good idea. Ayata, I think that's how you pronounce your name, says, is objective thinking the same as critical thinking? Not exactly, but it can be used for critical thinking. Critical thinking is sort of like an umbrella. and objective subjective thinking would be a big section of that umbrella. So you use it to do critical thinking. Very good. So I'm going to pop over to YouTube to see if there's any questions up there. All right. Oh, we do. Okay, so hello all of you YouTube people. I really appreciate you joining me. And yes, very happy to be transparent, Cynthia. Most people who get to know me know I'm an open book. And I think it's really important to be so. If we're going to be in an empowerment paradigm, I can't be put on a pedestal. It is not a teacher over the student, guru over the students. No more of that. None of that. We are equals. So I'm an open book. That's why, is because my transparency, it helps us to all be one. It helps with the equanimity. It helps us to be equal. Because how are we ever going to get anywhere if we don't have a chance to be together on the edge of consciousness? And June asks such a nice question. What does loving the hate look like? I'll tell you. June, take some time to think of things that you genuinely hate. Bring it up in your body. Where does that hate show up? Maybe it's simply a food, or maybe it's a bad situation or a person even. Go into that hatred. Find it in your body. What's the sensation of hatred in your body? Welcome it there. Go into it. It can't hurt you. Hatred cannot hurt you. It's just a frequency. Stand in it. Know it. Welcome it. Say so. I welcome you, hatred. You have a place in this universe just like me. And I want to learn from you. I want to learn from you. And hatred's going to stop the tension in the body. Once you welcome it and you say hello to it, it stops that tension in the body. And then there's a freedom. And the hatred then doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't have this power over you anymore. You don't feel drowned by it anymore. So you feel like you got to run away. And then you can say, okay, I love you. Thing that is required for love is existence. And that's what you'll say. And does that mean you'll believe it right away? No, it takes time. This takes some effort, right? But as you say it out loud, especially, you'll feel the release I'm talking about. It's a freedom. And you'll feel free of it. You'll feel free of the consciousness under pressure that's going on. Very good. So Jessica wants to know, how do we know if we are in denial of the negative emotions without processing it? So denial will happen when something uncomfortable happens, you feel tension, and then you take your entire attention and you redirect it somewhere else. And denial can be useful in the moment, like I can't sit here and try to process hatred while I'm at work. Or denial can be a problem. You know, this keeps happening over and over and over again, and it's still uncomfortable, and I really can't deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to shut the door. So you got to find out, you know, when is it in those moments that you're maybe being called out for that? That's a good clue to tell if you're in denial, is when other people around you say, hey, you're in denial. Or when something keeps happening over and over and over again. So when stuff keeps happening over again, then, and it's not been, the foundation of it hasn't been dealt with, then you know, okay, I'm missing something. And listen, don't think you got to do this all alone. I certainly can't. Reach out for help. Have people from their vantage point, from their facet of reality, look at your facet of reality and give you ideas about what you might be missing. I go to my teacher all the time and she gives me all kinds of juicy things I'm totally missing, and it's great. Do that. Reach out regularly and say, hey, can you just take a look at this with me? Am I missing something? Am I in denial? And when you care about that and you keep looking for the denial, then you're going to find that you'll deny less. And then you won't end up missing anything because you've been caring about uncovering the denial. Good. Very good. And so Becky's saying it's so hard to have a conversation about anything with people who think they are right. It's community. How do you welcome somebody in the conversation, even with friends? Mirroring. So let me do like a quick mirroring training. That's the communication I was talking about earlier. So let's say someone comes up and they have a political point of view you totally disagree with. In fact, perhaps it makes you really uncomfortable and you're vehemently against what they're saying, right? Which is, that's been happening a lot for a lot of people, especially lately. So what you're going to do is you're going to mirror it back to them. I hear you. I hear that you're afraid or that you're angry, or you find whatever their emotions are, you name it. Gosh, you must feel so frustrated. Wow, you really care so much about truth. You see, there's no but, and, or I. You really care so much about truth, but no. You don't and anything. You don't add the I. You're not talking about yourself. Think of it as story time, my friend says. He said, it's story time. It's story time. They're telling you what their story is. It's not your story. You don't have to own the story. It's theirs. But if you want your story to be cared about, then we have to teach the people around us to talk to us. So we got to show them how first. So it's going to be, I'm open to you. I'm open to whatever you're saying. I want to hear what you have to say. What is your vantage point? If someone is then ready, Becky, and for all of us, if someone's ready to hear you, then they'll say, what do you think? Or if you'd like to start to talk about your vantage point, you can say, it's consent. Would it be okay if I shared my vantage point, which is very different from yours? Maybe they don't want that and they say, well, I don't know. I don't know if I can. Okay, that's okay. Right? And that's how we're going to change this dynamic of dialogue, and we're going to end making it personal. We can't be making our opinions personal. We can't be making what we know personal. We have to then mirror what we're seeing and noticing it and try to work on doing it as objectively as possible, not with the intent to change them, but only simply to allow them to be heard and seen. And this changes the dynamic of communication instantly. And then people actually really feel heard, and that feeling is so different than any other debate they've gotten into, where maybe they got slammed or even bullied, or vice versa, where they were the bully. And when that changes, then they don't have any power over you. If they are the bully, they don't have any power over you anymore, because you're just going to mirror back to them what they're saying. It ends the power over paradigm in communication. And that's what mirroring can do. There's a really good book that you can learn this from. It's called Parent Effectiveness Training, and I highly recommend it to you, even if you're not a parent. It changed the way I communicate, and I highly recommend you read it. Anyone ought to read it. It's one of my top 5 recommended books that I think are most important. So even if you're not a parent, every communication skill in there is useful for everyone, because guess what? Little secret, we're all children. We're all children of Source God. We never stopped being children. We're always the children of this world, the children of the earth. Beautiful. Very good. Alice asks a good question. Is fatigue a frequency? I don't know. I haven't thought of it like that. Is fatigue a frequency? Well, I think fatigue is a physical issue. Or not even an issue. Fatigue is your body saying, hey, I don't have enough rest. Sort of like hunger is your body saying, I need more food. I wouldn't say fatigue is exactly an emotional frequency. I think it's a physical side effect of something. But we can have a reaction to fatigue, and that reaction would be a frequency. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's my viewpoint on it. Thank you for asking that. It's a very smart one. Good. Elizabeth has this very good comment here on YouTube. Society tells us that any sort of pain and illness are bad to the extent that employment is less available to those with physical challenges who are outwardly acknowledging their pain. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I'm with you on that one. And how might we have a very different society that says pain and illness are not bad? Pain and illness are there for us to learn from. That would be a very different frequency, wouldn't it, for our society? Good. All right, so a couple more questions here on the Zoom, and then we'll build our pillar of light. Thank you for hanging out with me this long. Nicole asks, what do you feel is the best way to approach someone in your circles who really doesn't want to do the processing work? In particular, the work necessary to be in a relationship. That's a tough one. You know, I like to just mirror it back to them, Nicole. You really don't want to face this. It's so painful for you. This is so frustrating for you. And it's easier to not look at it and to mirror back what you're perceiving. To call someone out on denial without them asking is a challenge. So we do want to try to get consent with this kind of stuff. But if they're in super full-blown denial, it's near impossible to get them to see that and give you consent to actually be shown it, right? So it's going to try to unfold someone else is going to be basically impossible. What is possible is to keep noticing where you're at, you need, and speaking about those needs. We need to be able to actually say what we need, what we love, and what we need every day, to name it. And then we can talk about what we want. To talk about what we need is the foundation that we build all of our wants from. So it's tough. It's really tough. And you're not alone. I think many people have a lot of folks in their life who absolutely refuse to process. And they're learning something out of that, right? They're getting something out of it. That's a good question to ask. What is it that this person is getting out of not processing? What are you getting out of it? And what do we get out of it by hanging around them, even though we love them, and then they don't do any of the work. Why do we hang out there? What is it that we're getting out of it? So that's a very challenging situation, and not an easy one to unfold. And many relationships and friendships end up crumbling because one person out orbiting relationship refuses to do the work. And so eventually they're going to have to, in some way, shape, or form. Everyone's going to end up needing to process what shows up. Okay, so Ayata asks a good question. How do we process emotions that make us physically sick? The name of the parenting book, Ayata, is Parent Effectiveness Training. I forget the author. He's really cool, though. That make us physically sick. The physical illness of the emotion is a frequency. That's one of the signs that you're feeling it, right? So maybe you feel nauseous when you get angry. I tend to get a headache when I get angry. Like I was just actually feeling anger earlier and I have a little headache. And so then you got to go in and process the emotion, welcome the nausea. You're going to welcome the headache. You're going to welcome the physicality of what has occurred because of the emotion. And so you go in and you go deep. You're going to welcome the pain. You're going to welcome the nausea. And it will tend to soften and then dissipate. So usually, especially you empaths out there, you'll get physical stuff going on when you're feeling really yucky peak separation frequencies and you feel just sick, right? And then you just shut down and you want out of there, right? And this technique is harder. You got to go into it, but it's faster and you deal with it fully so that eventually when sadness or anger comes up, it might not cause the nausea anymore because you're working on that. So although the sadness and anger still might come, the physical repercussions of it might not be so bad the more you go into it and process it and welcome the difficulty of it. And then it has less pressure in the body. Usually physical symptoms like that are a signal of resistance, great resistance to that emotion, right? And the body's resisting. It's literally saying, I'm going to throw this up. If you stay angry, I'm going to throw it up out of you. I'm going to give you a headache so you can't even focus on it because I'm resisting it. That's the physical repercussions of resisting an emotion. So the more you go in and you say, hold on, I'm going to welcome the throwing up too. And maybe I do throw up and I'm going to welcome that. And I'm going to welcome this headache. And I'm going to go in and just keep welcoming it. You're welcome here, headache caused by anger. You're welcome here, nausea caused by fear. I welcome you. You keep going and it dissolves, there's less resistance. So then you're literally not resisting it, you're going into it. Give that a try. Good. So Nicole is saying fatigue definitely has a frequency. It's a very specific energetic fingerprint. Good. So I think she's saying it from experience, and that's handy for us. So those of you might go into that and notice fatigue having a frequency. And perhaps maybe fatigue showing up as resistance to something else too. So it's not just a matter of self-care, is it? It's really going to be a matter of going deep into it and finding the root of the frequency of fatigue, getting to know fatigue and learning to even love it, right? And Mina, you're right. Everything is a frequency in the end, isn't it? That's true. So Kim is asking an excellent question. Do you think that protecting oneself psychically and spiritually is really essential? Or is this some kind of old 3D programming connected to an old ideology rooted in good and evil? You're right on the money, Kim. You knew the answer. You knew the answer. The concept of protection creates separation, doesn't it? I'm going to separate me from the, even like the latest is, I'm going to separate me from the EMFs, right? and and the attitude that might shift it is saying it's my fear of the EMFs causing illness or problems in my body that I need to look at first, and then I want to examine how technology is working for me mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So you're right, protection, the age-old concept of protection is really separation. And my mindset, which is not one that I came by quickly in any way, shape, or form, is to go in and reclaim your power by saying, I'm going to go into that fear. I'm going to go into that frequency of the fear. You're not welcoming demons into your body. You're welcoming your fear. It's yours. And when you welcome the fear, it dissolves and the demons don't have any power over you anymore. The darkness seems to not have any power, and then you get to see it for really what it was all along. It was consciousness. It wasn't really good or evil exactly, or even dark or light. It's just pure consciousness. It's light, all of it. Even the demons, they're made of light. And that's the idea. This would be a very specific kind of mysticism we're talking about, really. Very good. And then last question here. Oh, it's Thomas Gordon. Thank you, Nicole. You're so handy. Yeah, that's right. It's process. Nicole says it's pretty much process or die these days. Yes, absolutely. I agree. And Nicole also says a very handy point too. You can release a certain amount of fatigue through processing. So yeah, there is some really special, amazing things and miracles that happen through processing like this. Good. All right. So let's build a pillar of light. We have our last 10 minutes together. Thank you all for your deeply intelligent comments and questions and ideas. You care, and I can tell you care so much, not just about yourself, you care about the world. You care about making it a happier and better place for everyone, including yourself. Thank you. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being selfless. Thank you for being in inquiry all the time, especially of yourself. It makes a difference for all of consciousness. Excellent. All right, my friends, let's go out to the Atlantic. Come join me. Just imagine it. Just imagine the Atlantic. We've all seen a map. We can guesstimate. So if we go out into the Atlantic and we all stand in a circle just above the ocean surface, let's stand in a big circle. We have a good amount of people with us today. We had over 100, perhaps 150 today. So we have all these beautiful souls too who will listen to this later. And when you do, add your intentions into any pillar of light. We always build one at the end of every call, and they remain. The pillar of light is something mentioned using our imagination. It's like a physical prayer of sorts, and it remains. It transmits our intentions. So here's your chance to pull up all those intentions you've got for the whole world, especially around freedom and justice. And so the freedom to have your facet of reality totally welcomed at the table, the freedom to have justice in any aspect of your life, and justice for all equally. That's what we're intending for the planet. And that's what this pillar of light will transmit in perpetuity until those intentions are fulfilled fully, and then it's not needed anymore. And there's pillars for all sorts of things all over the world that we've built for many, many years, and they will continue to be there until their jobs are done. So let's make one today. All right, we're together and we're standing in this big circle. It's nice and huge and really present today. Thank you. And so we ask, we're going to start with our gut mind first. We're going to project our intention from the gut. And the gut mind represents survival, but not just any survival, thriving with the planet Earth. So we're going to ask for that justice and freedom to survive and thrive in harmony with the earth. And that's what we're going to project first as our foundation. So go down into your gut and pull up that emotion, pull up the frequency emotion of to survive and thrive in harmony with the earth for freedom and justice. Good. And now we're going to project it with a deep breath now to the center at the foundation of our pillar. So I see something different every time we do a pillar. This time, this deep, deep red like blood came and entered, and it unfolded its beautiful tendrils out to a beautiful platform of shining bright white light that is being held with this deep blood red color. And that's life. It represents the power that freedom and justice and thriving in harmony with the earth does. It's the lifeblood of our existence, is to be in harmony with the earth, right? When we are in disharmony, then we cause all this havoc and the potential destruction of our species. So we have this life's blood energy as our foundation. Very excellent. Now let's go from the heart. Freedom and justice from the heart. For all, especially the vulnerable, especially the undervalued, as Mark pointed out to us, especially the tragically oppressed, either spiritually, emotionally, mentally, or physically oppressed. Justice and freedom for them, with our open hearts, with our love for them. We project unconditional love for all who need justice and freedom desperately, the whole species, but all, especially the vulnerable. Let's pull up that emotion now in our heart, and with a deep breath, project it to the center of our pillar. Wow. This incredible golden, powerful golden light entered into the center of the pillar, and then it sort of exploded out, and then this beam, this laser beam of gold light goes down deep into the center of the earth and up and out into space. Very cool. That's an incredibly powerful intention. That was pure power. Good. Now we're going to project from our brain mind, the third eye, and our precious brain and crown. We're going to project from there the imagining of freedom, the dreaming of it. So mystical dreaming, when we mystically dream something, we do it while we're awake. We're mystically dreaming the possibilities for this new planet that we want to be working with, this new relationship with the planet, not a new planet. And so we have this new relationship. It's the possibilities of governments and economies and cities being built for children, for example, for the children, for example, for the generations to come, for all systems to be built with those 7 generations in mind, for all language to be shifted into those 7 generations, for all facets, including those of the children, to be appreciated equally, because all of us are stakeholders in this experiment on the planet. All of collaboration training. You are a stakeholder. So are the children. So are your neighbors. And as we envision that, it doesn't have to be a perfect structure in envisionment. It just has to be a feeling, at least, a frequency. Let's take that feeling, that dream, and let's project that to the top of our pillar with a deep breath. Beautiful. This one has a softer feel to it. It's softer. It looks very cloud-like. It looks like a cumulus cloud being built up. Those real big, huge clouds that turn into thunderstorms, right? And what rains down? The dream. The dream raining down on us. Beautiful. So there it is. Pillar of light topped with our dream raining down on us. The buildup, the billowing of the dream. And then we have the incredibly powerful empathy and compassion for all vulnerable, for freedom and justice for all. And then we have the grounding, the thriving and surviving in harmony with Earth, with justice and freedom as the foundation. Out in the Atlantic who remembers the cries of the enslaved. She remembers. And we offer this pillar of light for all of humanity throughout perpetuity and time as long as it is needed. And now let us unhook ourselves from our creation. With a deep breath, we unhook our mind, and another with our heart. And one last to unhook our root. Good. And now it exists. And if you have heard this separately from this time in the future, please add in your intentions. Please take part, because your facet and your addition counts for all of consciousness. Beautiful, beautiful creation, my friends. Absolutely magnificent. Joe says he sees dolphins. I'm so glad, because I think they would like what we've made. They're pure freedom, aren't they? Good. All right, my friends. We will meet next month. 1 month, and so always the last Sunday of the month, and that's going to be June 28th. June 28th. 12 hours. I'm going to be in Montana, so I'll see you while I'm there. And I look forward to connecting to you then. But in the meantime, I love you. Thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you for your beautiful thoughts and questions and ideas, your support for each other, and thank you for your support for me. You support me so much. Your presence and your continued interest in this work. It supports me and my family. It supports my healing. It supports every day. I wake up and I say, I can't wait. I can't wait to keep working on this so we can do it together, so that the people can do it together. And I think about you. I think about all of you. And I've got you in my heart. You're in my field. You're welcome here. Lean on me. I've got your back. Thank you for having mine. I feel it. I'm present with you. Namaste. Bless you and take care and have a beautiful day.